Hey guys, episode 87. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, be part of what we're doing here with Bible in a Year. We have 2 more episodes to go.
I feel like I've been here for weeks.
Buddy. So the funny thing is when we shoot these, we usually shoot them all at once. And we joke all the time. Right. We were talking at the beginning of all of this. We didn't want to time code anything. The people they found us out. Because we never change our clothes.
I was going to say, am I supposed to bring 27 changes of clothes? I don't have a suitcase that big.
The funny thing was when I first started recording the daily devotionals on video, right. I used to change my shirt. We would shoot 10 at once, and I'd have 10 shirts standing there. Yeah. And eventually I was like, this is stupid. Yeah. They'll figure it out.
Right.
You know?
Which also explains why we might seem a little exhausted. I mean, there's so much here.
Well, so just insight for you guys. We're only going to shoot 2 more of these today.
Right.
And go ahead.
Yeah, and we may not change our shirts for the next one.
I have to change my shirt because I'm about to really date it here. I have to change my shirt because I leave when we finish 2 Samuel tomorrow.
Right.
I'm shooting the 2 episodes of Ruth with David Spence, and then I'm leaving to catch a flight for Dublin, Ireland.
I feel sorry for you.
I know, really.
Having to go to Ireland,
So here's what we're going to do. I don't even know if I did the intro or not. We may be deep in.
Like it.
Yeah.
Ring the bell. Do all of that stuff. Follow. Yes.
So today, your readings are actually 1 Samuel 25 through 27. But when we finish up, because we're talking about Achish here, we're going to go to 28, 1 and 2, just so we can stay contextual.
Sure.
So let's get this thing started. All right, episode 86.
Whenever you see the word harvest time or sheep shearing time, understand that's an innuendo for drunken revelry.
Well, the thing is, we were talking about this before, and I just said that, Dr. Spence is coming in tomorrow to cut the Ruth episodes.
Right.
There's a direct connection there.
Absolutely, yeah. And not only was there the harvest was going on, there was money being exchanged, which meant drunken men with money also attracted women of questionable character. And so when you bring in that whole story, Ruth was not a questionable character. She was a woman of character. Mm-hmm. But it even suggests perhaps that Boaz was a man of character.
Well, and the thing about it is when people are watching this, they're like, wait a second, they're talking about shooting Ruth. We already watched Ruth. Yeah. We're not quite shooting them in order, but what Jim is talking about, and I'll probably bring it up, when we're shooting the Ruth episodes, she's still operating in this pattern of ignorance because she doesn't quite know yet, or maybe ignorance being uninformed, not like Saul who refused to be transformed.
Exactly,
but she still is Moabite.
Yeah.
And that is her culture, and she's learning Hebrew culture.
And David's grandma, by the way.
Oh, well, and this is so significant. It just is. And so you see that kind of picture in the book of Ruth where Boaz takes such a strong stand and says, now, wait a minute. I'm with you. But 2 things. 1, we got to do this right.
Right.
We're not doing this here right now, even though he could have. And 2, he would have sinned. And then 2, there's a kinsman redeemer.
Right. We need to clear that first.
Yeah, we got to clear that first. Right. And it was funny when we were talking about Mosaic law, the whole I spit in your face and throw my sandal at you at the same time. Boaz, you want to talk about grace?
Oh yeah.
He doesn't do it.
Right.
He gently, graciously lets the guy walk away who isn't doing his job. But that's another story for another day. What is going on with Nabal and Abigail and all of this?
Right.
What's happening here?
So again, drunken revelry going on here. And Nabal is already known as a mean person. So you add alcohol to that, he's a mean drunk.
That's what I was going to say. And I'll just insert this super quick. When somebody comes into my office about counseling, and tells me they have an addiction to alcohol, one of the questions I always ask is beer, wine, or liquor? And look, I don't have any data to back this up. It's just years of experience. If somebody tells me liquor, there's a strong chance we got a strong, violent problem.
Okay.
And
That's
Nabal,
interesting.
yeah, I
Right.
find that liquor is just,
So David comes, he's on the run with his men. He says, "Hey, can you take care of us?" And Nabal just refuses it and humiliates David's men. Well, that doesn't go over well with David.
no,
So he comes at him.
he
right?
want to kill him.
Yeah. And Abigail, being the wise wife of Nabal, prevents David from getting blood on his hands, right? And rescues her husband, even though he doesn't deserve to be rescued. When Nabal hears of that, he has a stroke, dies a few days later. David hears about this. He says, "Hey, send for her. I'd like to marry her." And I love this. It feels a little bit romantic. She says, "I would be happy to marry David." This is not coercion.
No.
This is something clicked there in that desert. Something happened there.
It's Isaac and Rebekah seeing one another
Right.
from a far way off.
Right.
It's Jacob falling in love
Right.
with Rachel.
There's real love going on here.
Legitimate.
Legitimate, yeah. And then he, of course, marries him. So now we have another Saul account of Saul. Again, guess what? In pursuit of David. Didn't he say he wasn't going to do that anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. So here he is. He's camped in Ziph.
Yeah.
David and his men see what's going on. David says, I need somebody to go with me in the middle of the night. We're going to go and we're going to assess the situation. They go in, and David and his men, and it says God caused them to have a deep sleep. Again, God intervenes in ways that we can't do these things, God caused Jonathan to be victorious over the Philistines. God caused David to be victorious over Goliath. God causes a deep sleep. They slip past the lines, the circle of men around Saul. They go right up to Saul, and they take his water jug and his spear. David's friend says, this is, guess what? God's will and an opportunity. Remember what we learned in the cave of En-Gedi?
Oh, yeah.
3 things required for a good decision: the opportunity, the
Friends.
recommendation of friends, and God's voice. What does David say? I don't hear God's voice.
Opportunity.
Yes.
I got a shot.
Recommendation of a friend, but I will not touch the Lord's anointed. How many times have we thought, this is an opportunity for me to make a decision because this seems like a great opportunity? We've got to be patient with the timing of God because God's timing is always perfect. David knew that. He allowed that. So he takes a spear. He goes back up the hill within, beyond shooting distance, right? And says, hey.
Which is significant.
Yeah. Hey.
He's out of range.
Yeah. Hey, Joab, right? So how you doing with your job of protecting your king?
You failed, buddy.
Yeah. And again, what does King Saul do? He confesses.
That's it.
Not repents.
No repentance.
He confesses. You're more righteous than I, all of this. I want to say this about David. David's respect for God's choice was stronger than his desire for justice.
That is huge. Will you say that again?
David's respect for God's choice and timing was stronger than his desire for justice.
So if we can, we've pictured Christ and David all along. Say it one more time.
David's respect for God's choice and timing was stronger than his desire for justice.
So this is Simon Peter in Gethsemane, cutting off ears.
Yeah.
This is Judas trying to advance the cause by pushing Jesus forward. Because,
this is Jesus begging for the cup to be removed 3 times and saying, not my will, but your will be done.
Exactly. And one, Jesus, obviously, does the right thing, and the other 2, and let's be honest, it ain't 2. It's 2 trillion. It's everyone who's ever lived,
right?
Who says, even if I know God's way is right, I'm going to go ahead and do this anyways because
Right.
I gotta quench this feeling.
It's a great opportunity. My
Yep.
friends are telling me to do it.
Yep. And frankly, I don't think I can withstand it anymore.
And I want justice.
Yes.
Isn't that a godly thing? Isn't that a righteous thing?
Oh.
Justice, right? We have so many people screaming for justice. What if what I'm jumping in to fix, because I think I'm righteous in doing it, God actually is not ready to fix? What if I'm actually rescuing someone from the lessons that God has for them?
I'm not trying to be silly about this. It's Willy Wonka.
I'm not really familiar with the show, so you have to explain that one.
Well, there's a child in that story, Veruca Salt, and her daddy's rich, and she wants what she wants now. And they all were going to get it at the end if they could just walk the journey. And she just kept crying, I want it now. I want it now. And daddy just kept giving and giving and giving. And that's how we are in this world.
Yeah.
You know, it's the person that lets their kids open up Christmas presents before Christmas morning.
Right.
It's immediate gratification, you know? I mean, even walk it back to Eden, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to stretch this too far. God knows that if you just eat this, your eyes will be open and you'll become like God.
He's holding out on you.
I mean, yeah, watch this. If they resist and they succeed, God says, guess what? You just learned the difference between good and evil. But they preemptively learn. It's saying, well, I'm 36 weeks pregnant, so I would just rather have the baby now. Yeah, but you understand the problems that you're creating there if you're trying to advance the agenda? I mean, and I can take that straight down the line.
I've waited 7 days. Where's Samuel?
I mean, that message is throughout 1 Samuel. It's just throughout. And how about we just let God take care of the timetable?
And that's exactly what David said to his man and to his troops. I will not touch the Lord's anointed. In other words, I trust God's will and his timing.
Do me a favor. You mentioned this 4 episodes ago. From the time David was anointed
Yes.
to the time he became king over Israel.
22 years.
22. How'd you like to walk with that anointing?
And I asked the question, how long am I willing to wait for God's will to be done? Right? And he didn't know in the middle of all of that, it was going to be 22 years.
You know, in 1998, I was asked to start Kingdom. July of 98. We waited until December of 98 to have our first service. I did not become a full-time pastor. I was bivocational until the spring of 2002.
Wow.
You know, waited and waited and waited and
waited.
waited and waited. And you know what? I'm better because I waited.
Right.
Hunger is a tremendous driver.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Patience is a wonderful thing. And
Yeah.
you actually referenced this a couple of episodes ago. 3 times Paul says, take it away, take it away, take it away. And finally God looks at him and he says, buddy, let me tell you something.
Right.
My grace is sufficient. Or even Jesus saying,
3
look,
times.
you guys, well, I was going to reference something else.
Oh.
Even Jesus saying, you guys keep asking me for a son. If all I were ever to give you was my own resurrection, is that good enough for you?
Yeah.
And
But as Jonah was in the belly of the
There
whale
it
for
is.
3 days,
oh my gosh.
there's that completion again. Am I content with the completion of God's will? Or do I insist that he do things my way?
My goodness. All right, we got 1 minute left.
Okay, 1
so
minute.
we're going to take about 4. We're back to Achish again.
Right, here comes Gath again. And David, in a very, very brilliant way,
Yeah.
convinces Achish that he is in support of him. And it makes sense because Saul's trying to kill him, right? So King Achish actually thinks David is on his side. And he says, I'll take command of the southern kingdom here. David is actually building the kingdom that he will eventually rule over.
100%.
Well, King Achish thinks that he's in support of the Philistines. So that brings us then to the next verses of chapter 28.
Yeah. So, guys, just as we finish up here, take a look at that. Chapter 28, verses 1 and 2. In those days, the Philistines gathered their forces to fight against Israel.
Right.
Achish said to David, "You must understand that you and your men will accompany me in the army."
Right.
And David said, "Then you'll see for yourself what your servant can do." Achish replied, "Very well, I'll make you my bodyguard for life."
Right. Isn't that amazing? And I'm thinking, David's thinking, "Oh Lord, what do I do?
Oh, I agree with you.
I'm not going to kill not only the Lord's anointed, I'm not going to kill my own people.
That's exactly right.
What are you going to do here?" And yet he goes along with the story because he trusts God.
Patient within it.
Yeah.
Patient within it.
Yeah.
I want to throw out what seems like a curveball here just as we close, and there's no question. I'm just purely putting this out there for informational purposes, and I'm telling you I could be 100% wrong about this, but I don't think that I am. At this point of the story, David has 3 wives,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand that culturally it's acceptable. I get it.
Right.
I get it. It does not, and this goes back to what Jesus says, where they come to him and say, "Hey, Moses said we could give a certificate of divorce." And Jesus says, "Well, this is true, but that's not how it was in the beginning." It's Jesus with the woman at the well. Go get your husband.
5 husbands.
Yeah, and none of them is your actual husband,
Yeah.
and yet you're married to every single one of them. Kevin's belief, and we'll get into this when we get into 2 Samuel. David had a woman problem.
Yeah. His son followed in his footsteps.
He did. Yeah, and not just one. Absalom did too. You know what I mean? With the concubines up on a roof. I think, and I could be totally wrong about this, but I think David had 28 children by maybe 7 different women, I think. I mean, don't quote me on that.
But a lot of kids, a
He had-
lot of wives, and didn't do a really good job of running his family.
He was not a good dad.
No.
He just was not. He was a wonderful man, but he was not a good dad. He just wasn't. You know, it was a mess. And I think it all comes back to sexual sin. And what I mean by sexual sin is there's a standard. There's an Edenic standard,
Right.
which we should all be living to. A man shall leave his father and mother, be joined to his wife, and the two become one flesh.
Right.
Any time we start inserting, a person here, a person here, a person here, a person here, it's not following God's plan.
Right.
And that's, like we've had a million lessons in these, but that's one of the biggest ones.
Right. And we see David developing as a tremendous leader.
Yeah.
And you see that, and you think, "Oh, David, please no." Yeah.
He just keeps doing it. He just keeps doing it. All right, guys, 1 to go in 1 Samuel. Goodness, this has been amazing. All right, we'll join you tomorrow. We'll finish up 1 Samuel. God bless you guys.